All right, so are you ready to crack open a cold one?
Yeah.
We are diving into Varun Beverages Ltd.
VBL.
VBL for short.
Right.
You've been learning a little bit about this beverage giant, and
Yeah.
we've got company filings, presentations, financial statements, like a whole cooler full to unpack.
It's like we're going to get like the inside scoop. Not just what they want us to see, but like the real story behind the numbers.
Exactly. So today we're on a mission to figure out if VBL is just a PepsiCo dawdler, or if there's something a little bit more refreshing brewing, beneath the surface. And of course, we'll check out how they're doing financially and what their plans are for the future.
Yeah. Let's pour ourselves a glass of information and get started.
Okay, first sip. Who is Varun Beverages Ltd? Obviously, they're in the beverage biz, but what's their story?
Well, think global, not just local. VBL is the second largest PepsiCo franchisee outside the U.S.,
Wow.
meaning they produce and distribute a ton of those like familiar drinks we all know.
Wow, that's way bigger than I imagined. Where do they operate? Are we talking worldwide?
Pretty much. They've got franchise rights in 10 countries, including India, Nepal, Sri Lanka, Morocco, and a bunch of nations in Africa. They're even distributing in another 4 countries on top of that.
So Pepsi 7, Up Mirinda, basically all the classics are covered.
You got it. But they're not just about sugary fizz.
Okay.
They've also got non-carbonated drinks like sliced Tropicana Aquafina and even Gatorade for the sporty types out there.
Hold on, I'm seeing snacks pop up in the research too.
Yes.
Are they branching out beyond drinks?
They are. In some countries, they're actually making Cheetos and distributing other PepsiCo snacks.
Really?
Like those Frito-Lay chips you see everywhere. They even co-manufacture a popular puffcorn snack in India called Kurkur. So their product lineup is way more diverse than you might think.
This is already shaping up to be more than just your average bottling operation. It sounds like they've got a hand in almost everything.
Right. And get this, VBL generates over 90% of PepsiCo India's sales volume.
Really?
That's like being the star player on PepsiCo's team in one of the biggest markets in the world.
That's a slam dunk for sure. Okay, let's crack open their business model. How does this whole partnership with PepsiCo actually work?
It's a pretty smooth blend, actually. Think of it like this VBL is the bartender mixing up the drinks, serving them up, and making sure everyone gets their fix. PepsiCo is more like the recipe developer, providing the brand names, the secret formulas, and the overall marketing magic.
So VBL is the muscle getting PepsiCo's products into the hands of millions of thirsty consumers.
You nailed it. And to do that, they've built a massive distribution network. We're talking over 130 depots, more than 2,500 distributors, a fleet of over 2,500 vehicles, and get this, over 1 million of those bright red Visi-coolers you see everywhere, reaching over 4 million outlets.
1 million Visi-coolers. Now that's how you chill out the competition. No wonder they're doing so well. Okay, time to check the scoreboard. How did they perform in recent quarters?
Well, their Q3 and 9-month results for 2024 tell a pretty impressive story, even with some unexpected weather putting a damper on things.
What was there a soda apocalypse I missed?
Not quite, but there were some pretty heavy rains in India, which affected sales a bit. But despite that, they still managed to grow significantly.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's pour over those numbers. What kind of growth are we talking about?
Their consolidated sales volume went up by a healthy 21.9% year-on-year, reaching a total of 267.5 million cases. That includes their new acquisitions like BevCo in South Africa and a shiny new facility they launched in the Democratic Republic of Congo, which we'll get to later.
So even with those new additions, it's still a big jump.
Absolutely. And their revenue from operations, the money they're making from selling all those drinks and snacks, also jumped up by 25.3% year-on-year. So basically, more sales, more money coming in.
Sounds like they're on a winning streak. What about their profitability? Are they actually making money from all this growth?
Here's where it gets interesting, and we'll avoid too much financial jargon. Essentially, their EBITDA, which measures how efficiently they're turning sales into profit, increased by a whopping 30.5%. That's like squeezing more juice out of every lemon, so to speak.
Okay, I like the sound of that. Are there any other numbers we should highlight?
Well, their profit after tax, or PT, the money they actually get to keep after paying all the bills, saw a crazy jump, growing by 47.6% from 2018 to 2023. That's a clear sign that they're not just growing, they're becoming way more profitable, which is what investors love to see.
Wow, VBL is clearly shaking things up. But what about their plans for the future? Are they going to ride this wave, or are they looking to make even bigger splashes?
From what we're seeing, VBL isn't content to just sit back and sip on their success. They've got some ambitious plans brewing to expand their reach and grow even further.
Let's hear it. What's on tap for VBL's future?
Well, remember that new facility in the Democratic Republic of Congo I mentioned?
Yeah.
It's what's called a greenfield facility, meaning it was built from scratch in a brand new location, and it's already running at 100% capacity. They're pumping out beverages as fast as they can.
Sounds like they're tapping into some serious thirst in the DRC.
You bet. And they're not stopping there. They're planning what's called backward integration, which basically means they'll be making more of their own ingredients and supplies right there in the DRC. Instead of shipping them in, they're even considering building a second facility there, too.
So they're doubling down on both new and existing markets?
Yeah.
But how are they going to pay for all this expansion? Are they printing money in those visit coolers?
Well, they have a pretty smart plan. The VBL board just gave the green light to raise a massive amount of money, about $915 million US, through what's called a Qualified Institutional Placement, or QIP.
Okay, I'm sensing some financial jargon creeping back in. Can you explain that in a way that won't make my head spin?
Sure. Think of a QIP like a special invitation to a party.
Right.
VBL is inviting big investors like mutual funds and insurance companies to buy shares in the company. This influx of cash will help them fund all these exciting new ventures, like building those new facilities and expanding into even more markets.
So this QIP is basically a signal that VBL is ready to level up their game in a big way. But what does all this mean for the average person? Someone who might be thinking about investing in VBL or even working there.
It definitely shows that VBL is a company with a clear vision and the drive to achieve its goals. They're not afraid to make bold moves, and they're clearly betting on a bright future. For investors, it's a sign of confidence, and for potential employees, it could mean exciting opportunities to be part of a rapidly growing company.
All right, so we've covered who they are, how their business works, and their plans to expand. But in today's world, it's not just about profits, right? What about their sustainability initiatives? Are they doing anything to address their environmental footprint?
You're absolutely right. Sustainability is a big deal. And thankfully, VBL seems to be taking it seriously. In fact, they've set a pretty ambitious goal. They want to be water positive.
Water positive, that's a new one. What does that even mean? Are they going to start selling bottled water with extra hydration power?
Not quite. It means they aim to put back more water than they use in their operations. We're talking double the amount they use.
Wow.
Think investing in water conservation tech, supporting rainwater harvesting and restoring water bodies in the areas where they operate.
So it's not just about taking water out, it's about putting it back in and making a positive impact.
Yeah.
I like that. What about their carbon footprint? Are they doing anything to reduce their emissions?
They're on it. VBL has committed to reducing their carbon footprint by 35% by 2025 and to achieving net zero emissions by 2050. That means they're basically trying to eliminate their contribution to climate change entirely.
Those are some lofty goals. How are they going to pull that off?
They're taking a multi-pronged approach, like switching to renewable energy sources. They're already using a mix of solar and wind power and are working to increase that. They're also implementing energy efficiency measures across their facilities, kind of like turning off the lights when you leave a room. And get this, they've already replaced over 2,000 of those traditional visit coolers with more eco-friendly models that use a more sustainable refrigerant.
So they're really trying to green their operations from the factory floor to the street corner. I'm seeing some interesting stuff here about their packaging and recycling efforts, too. What are they doing on that front?
That's a great question, and we'll dig into that in part 2 right after a quick sip break. Welcome back. Before the break, we were talking about VBL's efforts to become more sustainable, especially when it comes to their packaging.
Right, I was just getting to that. It sounds like they're trying to go beyond just using less plastic. Are they actually recycling more, too?
Absolutely. They've set some pretty big targets for reducing plastic use in their packaging and increasing the use of recycled PET or RRP. It's basically giving those plastic bottles a second life instead of ending up in a landfill.
That makes sense. But are they actually walking the walk, or is this just talk?
They're definitely taking action. For one thing, they've teamed up with Indorama, a global leader in PET recycling, to make sure they have a steady supply of RPE to use in their bottles.
So they're not just hoping recycled plastic will magically appear, they're actually investing in the whole process.
Exactly. And they're already using RPT in some of their products, like those Pepsi Zero Sugar bottles we mentioned earlier.
That's great to hear. It sounds like they're really trying to make a difference, not just for their bottom line, but for the planet, too.
It's a smart move because a lot of consumers these days care about sustainability and want to support companies that are trying to do the right thing. So it's good for the environment, A&D, good for business.
Speaking of smart moves, let's rewind a bit and talk about their expansion into new territories and product categories.
Right. Remember their acquisition of BevCo in South Africa?
Yeah.
That was a major play to expand their reach.
Yeah, that definitely made a splash. It seems like that gave them a pretty big footprint in the South African beverage market, plus even more distribution rights in nearby countries.
What's interesting is that Bevco was already a well-established player in South Africa, producing and distributing not only PepsiCo brands, but their own unique brands, too.
So VBL wasn't starting from scratch. They
Mhm.
got a ready-made network and some popular local brands right off the bat.
Exactly. It was a strategic way to quickly ramp up their presence in the region.
And speaking of strategic moves, let's talk about their venture into the snack market. I have to admit, I'm still surprised that a beverage company is now making Cheetos.
It might seem unusual at first, but it actually makes a lot of sense.
Mm.
They already have the factories, the trucks, and the distribution network in place. And let's be honest, what goes better with a cold drink than a tasty snack?
That's true. I'm definitely guilty of pairing my soda with some chips. But it sounds like they're going beyond just Cheetos, right?
Yep, they're branching out. They've got exclusive agreements to make and distribute a popular snack brand called Simba Munchies in Zimbabwe and Zambia.
Simba Munchies, huh? I'm not familiar with that one.
It's a big hit in those countries, known for its potato chips and other savory snacks.
So they're really tapping into local tastes and preferences, not just trying to force-feed Cheetos to everyone.
Exactly. It's a smart way to broaden their offerings and appeal to a wider range of consumers.
Okay, so we've got this ambitious expansion happening, new territories, new products. But this also raises a question for me. Can VBL actually manage all these moving parts? I mean, we're talking about multiple countries, different products, different cultures. It seems incredibly complex.
That's a great question, and it's something that investors and analysts are watching closely. Integrating new businesses and navigating different regulations in each country can be really challenging. And when you're dealing with a global operation like VBL, it gets even more complicated.
Right. You've got different consumer preferences, cultural nuances, even just the logistics of getting products from point A to point B across different continents. Seems like there's a lot of room for things to go wrong.
There are definitely risks involved. It's like juggling a bunch of different balls at once. You have to be very skilled to keep them all in the air.
So while the growth potential is exciting, there are also some real challenges they'll have to overcome.
Absolutely. But on the flip side, VBL does have a pretty solid track record of getting things done. They've consistently delivered strong financial performance, and they've successfully expanded into new markets in the past.
True, they've proven they can make things happen. And their close relationship with PepsiCo probably helps too.
Definitely. Having a global powerhouse like PepsiCo as a partner provides stability, support, and access to a wealth of knowledge and experience.
It's like having an experienced guide to help you navigate a new and unfamiliar landscape.
Exactly. And now that we've covered their expansion moves, let's shift gears back to sustainability and dive a bit deeper into those efforts.
Great idea. We talked about their goals for water conservation and reducing their carbon footprint, but it sounds like there's more to the story.
There is. Their sustainability initiatives extend beyond those two areas. For example, they're actively working to improve their packaging and recycling practices.
We touched on that earlier with their use of RPT. What else are they doing on that front?
They've set ambitious targets to reduce the amount of plastic they use overall, not just replace it with recycled materials. Think things like making their bottles lighter and using less plastic in the caps and labels.
So they're really looking at the whole package literally and trying to reduce their impact at every stage.
Right. And what's interesting is that they're going above and beyond just meeting the minimum legal requirements for recycling. They're actively seeking ways to minimize their impact and create a more circular economy for their packaging.
What does a circular economy mean in this context?
It means they're trying to keep materials in use for as long as possible rather than just using them once and throwing them away. That involves designing packaging that's easier to recycle, collecting and recycling more materials, and even finding new uses for recycled materials.
So they're thinking about the entire life cycle of their products, from the raw materials to what happens to the packaging after the consumer is finished.
Exactly. It's a more holistic approach to sustainability.
It sounds like they're really trying to be leaders in this area, not just followers.
Yeah.
But let's be realistic for a second and circle back to something you mentioned earlier. The risks that come with rapid expansion and diversification.
Right. It's important to acknowledge that there are potential downsides to growing too quickly. It can put a strain on resources, lead to operational hiccups, and even hurt profitability if things aren't managed carefully.
And when you're entering new markets and product categories, there's always the risk that things won't go as planned.
Absolutely. You might not fully understand the local market, or your product might not resonate with consumers the way you expected. There are a lot of variables that can impact success.
So for investors and other stakeholders who are watching VBL's journey, what are the key things they should be paying attention to as the company continues to grow?
That's a great question. I think it's important to keep a close eye on how well they're able to integrate their new acquisitions.
Like Bevco in South Africa.
Exactly. Are they successfully merging operations, managing different company cultures, and maintaining a consistent brand experience for consumers? Those are all critical factors for long-term success.
And what about their move into the snack market? Are they able to replicate their success in beverages in a completely different product category? That seems like a big challenge.
It definitely is. The snack market is very competitive, and VBL will need to develop a strong strategy to stand out from the crowd.
And of course, it's always crucial to keep an eye on their financial performance. Can they maintain their profitability as they expand, or will the costs of growth eat into their margins?
These are all important questions that only time will answer. VBL's story is still being written, and it will be fascinating to see how it all unfolds in the coming years. But we're out of time for this part, so let's take another quick break, and we'll wrap things up in part 3.
Okay, deep divers, welcome back to our final stretch of this Varun Beverages Ltd deep dive. We've covered a lot of ground from their global reach and product variety to those ambitious growth plans and their commitment to sustainability.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey, hasn't it? We've seen how they've grown from, a major PepsiCo bottler into this global beverage powerhouse, and now they're even dipping their toes into the snack market.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So as we reach the bottom of the bottle, so to speak, what's the big takeaway from all this information? What does it all really mean for VBL's future?
I think it's safe to say that VBL is a company on the move, constantly pushing boundaries and looking for new opportunities to grow and evolve. They're not content to just rest on their laurels and keep doing things the way they've always been done.
Yeah, I totally agree. They're not afraid to take risks, try new things, and expand into uncharted territory.
Mm.
The recent acquisition of Bevco and their venture into the snack market are proof of that.
Right. And their strong financial performance gives them the resources and flexibility to pursue these ambitious plans. They're not just dreaming big, they're actually making it happen.
But as we've discussed with big moves, come big challenges. Integrating new businesses,
Yeah.
navigating different cultures and regulations, and breaking into a competitive market like snacks. It's not going to be a walk in the park.
You're absolutely right. There are definitely risks involved, and it's important to acknowledge that not everything they try will necessarily be a success.
So what should investors and other stakeholders be watching closely as VBL's story continues to unfold? What are the key indicators of their success or potential pitfalls to watch out for?
I think one crucial factor will be their ability to seamlessly integrate their acquisitions, like Bevco in South Africa. Can they successfully merge operations, manage different company cultures, and maintain a consistent brand experience for consumers across all these different regions?
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like trying to blend different flavors together to create a delicious new drink.
Yeah,
You need the right balance and the right ingredients for it to work.
exactly. And then there's the snack market. It remains to be seen whether they can replicate their success in beverages in this totally different arena. They'll need to come up with a winning strategy to stand out in a crowded and competitive space.
And of course, their financial performance will be a key indicator of their overall health and ability to keep growing. Can they maintain their profitability as they scale up their operations and enter new markets? That's a question we'll be watching closely.
Absolutely. It's a delicate balancing act between growth and profitability, and it will be interesting to see how they manage it.
So as we wrap up our deep dive, let's turn it back to you, the listener. What excites you about VBL's strategy? What stands out to you as a potential investor or even someone who might want to work there?
For me, it's their willingness to push boundaries and challenge the status quo. They're not afraid to take calculated risks and try new things, which is what drives innovation and growth in any industry. And their commitment to sustainability is also very appealing.
I agree. It's refreshing to see a company that's not only focused on profits, but also on making a positive impact on the world. Their water positive and net zero emissions goals are ambitious, but commendable, and their efforts to reduce plastic usage and increase recycling are definitely steps in the right direction.
It shows that they're thinking about the long-term health of the planet and their role in it, which is something I think many consumers, especially younger generations, really care about.
Well said. So deep divers, as we close out this episode, remember that our exploration is just the beginning. We encourage you to continue researching VBL, digging into their financials, their sustainability reports, and their news coverage to form your own conclusions about their future prospects.
Ask yourself, is this a company you would invest in? Would you consider working for them? What resonates with you about their story? These are all questions worth pondering as you watch their journey unfold.
And as VBL continues to grow and evolve, we'll be here to keep you informed and provide you with the insights you need to make sense of their next moves. So stay tuned, keep those curiosity engines running, and until next time, happy deep diving.